In real estate, every investor is supposed to know the kind of documentations that come when you purchase a property. And in this episode, we will be discussing the types of documents in real estate. My name is Ejuku Sharon Ibinabo, and I'll be your host today. And with me here, I have a legal practitioner here in ThankGod Properties, Miss Pearl Enuma. Welcome, Ma.
Thank you.
Welcome to TPL Series. I know the last time you were here, we had a wonderful time, and now you're here again. Yes, so I really hope today is going to be another wonderful episode. Yes, so you are a legal officer, right? Yes. So can you like just tell us about your role as legal officer? Like what's a typical day for you as a legal officer in a real estate company?
So it's basically just filled with documents, drafting of property documents, and client advisory, usually.
Okay. Just documents and
At client advisory, the client has an issue with um has an issue with understanding certain clauses
clauses.
in contract to explain to them. If they need clarifications, you clarify them on that, and then you ensure that their property is delivered to them at the appropriate timing and the document is properly done, and also due diligence. We
Okay.
run the due diligence to be sure the property we are given and we're selling out is properly legally covered and there are no legal mishaps anywhere.
Okay, that's really amazing. That's really amazing. So today we are dwelling on the different types of documents in real estate, right? So
Mm-hmm.
can you just tell us some of these documents, just the documents? Because I know a lot of persons will think it's just a deed of conveyance, survey plan, CFO, and I'm sure that there are more to that. So can you like just educate us on that?
Okay. So we have the deed of assignment, the power of attorney, the deed of conveyance, governor's consent, certificate of occupancy, power of attorney. I don't know if I've mentioned that, and a lot more others.
All right. So I heard you say deed of assignment and deed of conveyance.
Mm-hmm.
Can you like expatiate like what's the difference between the deed of conveyance and deed of assignment?
The deed of conveyance is usually for unregistered lands, and a deed of assignment is for registered lands. What do I mean by registered? I mean properties that are registered with the government.
What you mean by registered by the government or with the government? That's it has a C of O.
Yes, it has a CO,
Okay, okay, it has a
which is
C
a
of O.
certificate of occupancy.
So what you're trying to say or what you've already said, let me just paraphrase it is a deed of assignment is for a property that has C of O.
Yes,
Then
a
the
deed
deed
of
of
assignment,
conveyance is for a property that doesn't have the C of O yet.
CFO, yes.
Okay. Oh, that's really nice. That's really nice. All right. So can you tell us more about the C of O? What does certificate of occupancy? What's it all about? Because I've heard about an investor who said he doesn't want to get a property that doesn't have a C of O. So can you like just tell us what's the C of O about and why is it so important to have one?
Okay. So COO, the full meaning of COO is certificate of occupancy. I think I mentioned that. So basically, COO is like the initial or first evidence of the right of occupancy granted to you by the governor. You might be wondering, oh, why does the governor have to grant you right of occupancy? I mean, to your land. So according to the Land Use Act, which is what governs property transactions, all lands in the state belongs to the governor of the state. He holds it in trust on behalf of the citizens. So meaning you cannot um, buy, you cannot have a property without the governor's consent. So the certificate of occupancy is basically proving that, oh, the governor has consented to you having this particular property. Or let me put it in more practical terms, if I have maybe a pen and you want to use that pen, you need my consent before I
Yeah.
can use the pen. So
Yeah.
the C of O is like a contract where I said this pen, I've handed it over to you for a period of time for you to use before it can come back to me. Just like when you also finish university, they give you a certificate to say
Yeah. To
you're
say that
done.
you are
So
done.
it's like an evidence of,
Okay, it's
of
like
the
an
grant
evidence.
of the right of occupancy.
All right. So, okay, that's really really amazing. Honestly, yeah. So, still on the C of O and okay, what you're trying to tell me now is that the C of O and the governor's consent go hand in hand.
Yes.
Yes, okay. That's nice. Okay, on my next question here, I have how can buyers, investors protect themselves from fake CFO, fake governor's consent, or fake deed of conveyance or deed of assignment? How do they protect themselves from that?
Due diligence.
Okay,
Before buying a land or buying a property, you don't just trust blindly. You do the groundwork, and that's the importance of lawyers. Like you mentioned earlier, what was my role in
the real
ThankGod
estate
in real
sector.
estate sector, and I
Yes,
said to run due diligence because you as an individual you can't run certain due diligences without the knowledge, and we as professionals and we have such knowledge, so we do that by going to there are different ways to run your due diligence because before you buy a property, you don't just go ahead to purchase it. You have to check that such property is not subject to certain restrictions. Such property is because if someone gives you a seal of O and say, okay, oh, this is my land, I have the seal of O to this, and I just say, okay, seal of O, and it turns out to be fake. That's because you did go to check in the land registry. You didn't
okay,
go to check in certain places where you're supposed to check if those properties are valid. Because if a property has a CFO, it will show in the land registry. You will be aware of it in the land registry. If the deed of assignment, because there's a sector in deed of assignment where there's a clause or an area in deed of assignment where we call a recital clause. So that clause has the history of property from the first buyer. You understand? So if somebody gives you a deed with that clause, you can go to registry, land registry, and they check it for you, the history of the land for the first buyers, so that time if it's accurate.
okay. Thank you very much. So, let's say I don't have a lawyer yet and I want to buy a property. You said due diligence, and let's say I don't know anything about due diligence. So, how does one go for due diligence? Because we've actually been hearing it. Go for due diligence, do due diligence. What's this due diligence? And how can an investor do that without, okay, let's say the person doesn't have a lawyer yet. Like, I'm just saying from, I believe that a lot of top investors have lawyers, but let's bring it down to the layman. How do they do their due, like this due diligence that we're all saying? What's
Mhm.
it about?
So basically, due diligence is like, let me, in practical terms, due diligence means when you do you go through the proper checks to be sure that what you're getting is safe. You understand? So, in a situation where maybe you're an upcoming investor, you don't have access to that information, you don't have access to a lawyer. But let me use the situation whereby, oh, you want to purchase a property from a real estate company and you don't have a lawyer. So you could always request from them and be like, oh, do you have a lawyer that I can speak with?
Okay,
You understand? And then if they have a lawyer, then the lawyer will, you know, present themselves and you can ask all of those questions that you have. Also, you could check the land. You know,
check
some
the
people
land.
buy properties and they don't even know what they're buying. So you check the land, you can check the history of the land, you understand, and all of those things.
Okay, so you said check the land. How do I
Physical,
check the
physical
land?
inspection,
Okay, that's
physical
very very
inspection,
very true. Physical
physical
inspection.
inspection.
Yes, because you're not supposed to buy what you don't know about. You
Yes.
cannot buy what you don't know about. It doesn't make sense to me. So either physical inspection or virtual inspection, like
Yeah.
live
Just
inspection.
ensure
You are
you
seeing
see
it.
what you're buying.
Yes,
Physical,
yes,
you can
yes.
see it.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, so what are the most common documentation mistakes Nigerian land buyers or investors make that lead to loss of money or court cases? Like, what are some of these documentation
Um.
mistakes?
So yeah, for the documentation mistakes, usually I won't want to put it as documentation mistakes
Okay,
because you're not technically the person making the document. So I won't really say documentation mistakes. But if you mean mistakes you make when you're buying when you're buying land or in documentation processes, that's not getting enough information.
okay,
Because if we have to prepare a deed, we need accurate information. We need a survey plan. We need to know the details of what the property is. We need to know the history of the place through the recital. So if you don't have those informations, you won't be able to give the person preparing the document
accurate information.
accurate information on what they are doing.
Okay, all right. That's really nice to hear. Thank you very much. So right now we'll be going on a short break. I believe that you have gotten information about the kinds of documents in the real estate sector. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Thank God, oh, thank God, oh. Property we go last, generation go dey thank pass. Thank God, oh, thank God, oh, thank God, oh. Property we go last, generation go dey thank pass. When I be small boy for area, then they flex, chop money, disappear. Wise man talk, put them for the land. Oh. Today I dey smile, I understand. Oh. Small small plot, turn to kingdom. See my mama, see my children, freedom. No rush life, we dey plan, I'm steady. Future for my bloodline ready. Thank God properties, we dey buy am early. Land we go turn to legacy. Today we dey sow, tomorrow they go chop. Transgenerational blessing no go stop. Thank God properties, stack am like gold, like gold. Story where your grandchildren go they told. From village side to the city top, we dey plot, we dey grow, we no go stop. No go stop. See my guy, him blow, him just dey flex. Pop champagne next year in the vex, but he won't we invest for the soil. Now in them day the map like royal. Survey plant tight to clean, we sure every block.
Welcome back to this episode of TPL Series, where we're talking about the documents in the real estate sector. I'm your host, Sharon Ejuku, and with me is our legal officer, Miss Pearl. Welcome back, ma'am. Welcome back to this show. Yes. So before we went on that short break, you were talking of C of O, governor's consent, deed of conveyance, deed of assignment. I have a question because you know I went out for inspection and I overheard some people talking about power of attorney, contract of sale. So I want to have more information. I want our viewers also, because I'm pretty sure that they've heard some things like that and they are wondering what's power of attorney, what's contract of sale. So can you just explain what a contract of sale is? Let's start from there first.
The contract also is um contract of sale of land
Yes,
is basically a promise to sell
a
land.
promise.
It's like a promise to sell land. So it's a contract that basically binds the both parties, binds the purchaser to sell that land. Like say I want to purchase a land but I have paid like part payments. So to secure that partnership between me and the vendor, a
Oh,
contract of sale of land will be drafted. So usually it's drafted to bind both parties. So one person, anybody that decides to breach said contract can be held liable for breach of contract and stuff like that. So you won't hear stories of, oh, you promised, I already paid part payment and you sold property to somebody else. So contract of sale of land secures that particular agreement to sell the land to that person. Because it says that if once I pay the remaining amount of the purchase price, you will transfer title to me.
okay. So contract of sale is usually for part payments.
Usually for part payment. Like once the first agreement to sell the land has been made, the contract of sale of land should follow through. So
Okay.
one person
Does not default.
does not default, and if at all the parties default, you can hold the person liable for breach of contract because the contract has already been.
Wow. Okay. That's nice. That's educative. So,
Okay.
I said contract of sale, power of attorney. So, can you tell our viewers what the power of attorney is?
Power of attorney is an instrument of delegation, so it is basically to present a relationship between if a person cannot like do a particular thing or a particular act due to maybe his health reasons, the person is not available, it's he does the power of attorney to delegate his power to somebody else or to authorize the person to do that act on his behalf. So basically the person is acting as an agent to
Okay.
the person, to the donor. So we call them the donor and the donee. So
Okay.
the donor is the person donating his authority to the next person, which is the donee, to do that particular act on his behalf as an agent. So it's just an instrument for such delegation.
Okay. So let's say I want to sell my land. I want to sell my land, and I'm not in the country. So if I give you, if I tell you, okay, you can do whatever you want to do, is that like power of attorney?
It's orally.
Yes, orally.
No, it's not power of attorney. Power of attorney is the name of the document. You have to, like I said, it's an instrument of delegation. It's a legal instrument, so it has to be put
Written.
in writing. It has
Okay.
to be put in writing that I delegate such power to this person. So usually is revocable within. It's usually revocable. There's a stipulated time for it to be revocable, and also it can also be revocable. It
Okay.
depends.
Okay. Thank you very much. For it's not like a final question because definitely we'll have you here
Mm-mm.
again. Yes. So I would like you to just talk to our viewers. For someone listening right now who wants to buy land in Nigeria, what is the most important documentation habits they must develop to protect their investment?
Checking the validity of the land you want to purchase. You should always always for lack of better words, and also I don't want to keep on repeating due diligence, but you should always always emphasizing on the always do your due diligence before you purchase a property. Ensure that that property is safe. The person handing over the title to you, transferring the title to you on that property, is transferring a good title. Ensure that the property you're buying is not a government property. Make sure that you do the searches yourself. You check in land registry. You ensure that that property is not a subject of litigation. You ensure that if at all it's a communal land, the principal family members of that land have transferred property title to the person that is transferring it to you. Ensure that their consent were gotten. The family members of such property have their consent have been gotten. Just make sure you do all of this running around your so that your money won't make you buy a very costly mistake. And also make sure you involve a lawyer. Most people do your property transactions without asking a lawyer, without involving a lawyer. it's usually to your detriment, because if you make a costly mistake now, it will cost you more than what you initially planned. So ensure you put a lawyer on to such property transactions you are trying to get yourself involved in. Thank
Okay. Thank you very much. So, like you've heard our legal officer here, always, 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 she just continued saying always do your due diligence. Involve a lawyer because land, buying of land or investing in property, landed property, is not just like buying clothes. It's a lot of money. And we would not want you as an investor or an upcoming investor to buy something and then just lose your money that way. So before you purchase that property today, always do your due diligence. Involve a lawyer because you don't know everything on your own. Only you cannot do it. So make sure you do your due diligence. Go to Ministry of Lands, take the coordinates of that property and search for it, and then involve a lawyer so that it will be less stressful for you because the lawyer has more information than you, so that other people would not scam you and give you fake documents, because you might not know if it's a fake document or it's a real document, but a lawyer would know. Yes, so I'm very sure that you've had a wonderful time on this episode talking about documentations. Thank you very much, Miss Pearl, for
you. You're
coming on
welcome.
today's show. So don't forget to like this video. If you have any question, do well to drop it in the comment box down there. Just comment, and we'll definitely reply you. We'll get back to you. So do well to like this video, share it, comment, share, just share, subscribe and hit the notification bell so that whenever we are posting next, you'll be the first to know. So, see you on the next episode. Thank you very much and bye.
Bye.